What up? What up? Happy Sunday. Happy Sunday, Eric.
Hey, you too, Todd.
We are your get your lawnmower ready, then get your snowblower ready, then get your lawnmower ready leaders. We are under Snowmageddon 2024 right now. They've been warning us for the last 4 days that if you don't go get your water and your milk and your bread, that death is pretty much imminent. And then as I watched the 4 p.m. forecast this evening, it was, I don't know where all this talk of 24 inches of snow came from. Why? We have no idea. Right. We have about, I don't know, we got about 3 inches so far. The driveway is completely clear, which is a bonus. It's supposed to come down, though, in about 2 inches per hour tonight. So I'm sure we're going to get some accumulation in the driveway. So it's going to be unfortunate, but I'll have to wake up my daughter at about 5 a.m. and say, go shovel. It's heart attacks. No, I can't be out there. Too old for that. Right?
That's what they're calling it. They are calling it the heart attack snowfall.
Yeah, it's the heart attacks. No, it's the super wet and heavy stuff.
Yeah.
Gross. Just noticing some super quick follows. We might need to keep an eye on that, if you know what I mean. I don't know if those are legit or not, but if they were, thank you. Welcome in. And great reminder. It's a great reminder. We are live on Twitch. Cast and Camo is our name on Twitch. If you are watching on YouTube later, you can come and I am super wet and heavy, Ozzy. You got that right. Mm-hmm. Got that right. But welcome in. And if you're watching later, you can find us live every Sunday night, 7 p.m. Central on Twitch under Cast and Camo. And if you can't catch our stream, you can catch us on YouTube to watch Cast and Camo TV on YouTube. And guess what? You can now also find us, listen back, download us on iTunes, podcast, and Spotify. You can now find us. Download us, listen to us on your air flight or your airplane, wherever you're going to travel or whatever, on long drives. You might have a long drive out to Wyoming to go turkey hunting. Or you may not. It depends. Anywho. All right, let's cover our sponsors. We are nobody without them. So Texas Select Seasonings, and I think Wild Bill is coming up soon to be back on the show with us. Who knows what kind of hijinks we're going to get into with Wild Bill again. Texas Select Seasonings, use Cast and Camo in all caps for 15% off your order. Awesome, man. Thank you, Sarah. ! BBQ. We also have Sea-Ark. Sea-Ark boats. Enter code Joker69 to get 95% off your boat. But it will be upcharged 110%. So thanks, Joker, for that discount code, and thanks, Sea-Ark, for being a part. We're both wearing our Sea-Ark gear tonight. We're sporting it. And our newest friends, Deer 30, Cast and Camo 24 for how much?
24% off.
24% off.
You
Save
can't
that
beat
money.
that. That's right.
Gotta save that money. All right. What did we do last week? We had the controversial topic of forward-facing sonars, 360 imaging. And I gotta tell you, we have the most views of any non-pushed YouTube show that we've done. Meaning Jamie and his couple of his shows, he's pushed it out to his websites and all of his people that have used him as an outfitter. So look, by default, that has kind of the highest views. But that's such a hot topic that we talked about last week, man. I think everybody has an opinion and a feeling about it, except for us. Like, I don't think either one of us truly care what happens with it. But it does bring up an interesting topic. And I think once we kind of see how the Wisconsin thing plays out over the next few months, we can come back and revisit it. Who knows? Maybe we're dealing with a live scope ban, and we have to figure out, how are we ever going to fish? How are we ever going to catch any fish in Wisconsin now that we can't use live scope? Nobody knows. It's the greatest mystery. They're going to have such a high fish population. Nobody's going to know. Now we're going to have to up the limits because there's too many fish. It's crazy. What's up, Walleye? With the 420 bits. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Well, it is that time. We are at everybody's favorite part of the show where we review our emails.
I can't wait.
We've got mail. Email number 1, Dear Cast and Camo Guys, we watched last week's episode and we wanted to reach out to you to say thank you for being an advocate for us. Sincerely, all Wisconsin crappies. That's nice. You know, we're advocates, and it's nice to be noticed as advocates. Thank you, all the Wisconsin crappies, for tuning in and watching and listening to the show. We appreciate you as viewers and listeners, and we'll see you soon. All right, email number 2. I've got mail. Dear Todd, to me. You thought you could get away a whole winter without me. You are a fool. We are coming with a vengeance right now to ruin your commute and spring plans that you thought were so close. Sincerely, the first 12 inches. Now, that's not the first time. Never mind. I'm just gonna leave it right there and leave that alone.
Bypass that one.
Yeah, I'm just gonna leave that alone. We've got mail. Email number 3. Dear guys, I see you are 8 weeks into reading fan emails, yet you amazingly have never actually received a fan mail. I'm training with 8-mile walks with 80-pound packs for bear hunting. Now what? Sincerely, Bortz. Well, Bortz, it sounds like you need to up the poundage, maybe to 100 pounds. Because it seems like all the blood is flowing up to your head and it's starting to inflate your head a little bit. But I'm sure it's going to do wonders for your painting, all those muscles. You're going to be so jacked. So, what do the kids say? So swole. You're going to be swole. Swollen in the head.
Ooh.
Now what? All right. And that was the fan mail segment of the show. Now what? So now we're going to get into our guest, and for those that cannot see the stream title, we're going to be talking about Flintknapping, arrowheads, all sorts of cool shit tonight. Please don't say Bortz and poundage in the same sentence. That was a little too much for Sarah Sox to handle. I'm sorry, Sarah Sox. She's going to need a cold shower now. Jeez. Can we just pitch in? Can we get a dono goal to get Sarah sent to Wyoming? She can maybe go bear hunting with him, if you know what I mean. Anywho, we have a fantastic guest tonight. You guys are going to love this guy. I'm in love with his stuff. I'm in love with his work. I want to buy all of it. And I think it's a cool topic that I really don't know a whole lot about. But what I want to do to kind of kick it off and start it off, play a little intro. I'm kind of digging this intro video thing. So let's go into the theme.
Hi, I'm Mike Cook from artofIshi.com, and I'm a flint napper. I create arrowheads and knives from stone like our ancestors did. You see, no matter what part of the world your Stone Age ancestors came from, they shared one thing in common. For thousands of years, they created tools and weapons from stone. They were flint knappers. Now, I've been pursuing and practicing this ancient skill for nearly 40 years. It began with a childhood fascination with prehistoric people and an appreciation for the simple beauty of rocks. Then one day, something happened that coalesced into a lifetime quest. I found a real prehistoric arrowhead laying in the dirt. From that day, I have been compelled to learn how ancient people from all over the world created such amazing things from mere stones. It began with pure trial and error, just experimenting. But then I was inspired by a man who I never actually met. His name was Ishi. He was the last living person of the Yahi tribe, and he came out of the Northern California wilderness in the year 1911, and for 5 years revealed his Stone Age skills to the few people whom he befriended. They actually watched and photographed him, a Stone Age man, practice the ancient art of Flintknapping. Since that time, I have worked with many forms of flint, agate, jasper, obsidian from all over the world, but my specialty is creating arrowheads, arrowhead jewelry, and stone knives from exotic, rare materials from around the globe. One of those materials, by the way, is the precious gemstone called opal. It is the most colorful of all precious gems, but it can be flint knapped. Now, I have a weakness. I'm unable to resist those two qualities, so what I do is what only a handful of flint knappers in the world do. Practice the high-risk art of creating opal arrowhead jewelry with the non-conventional method of flint knapping. Now, my opal jewelry is totally functional to wear, but it's not something you're likely to find in a jewelry store. My arrowheads, spear points, and knives are created primarily as fine collectibles, but are also functional for those who wish to actually experience using stone tools. I've been using them for decades, and I can tell you, to this day, it's still a rush rediscovering history. So please join me in appreciating this amazing history that we all share in common. I'm Mike Cook, and remember, the Stone Age is back.
All right, we are back. Oh, I gotta bring Mike in.
Yes.
I bring Mike in here. There he is. There's
here.
The man.
Yeah.
Hello, Mike.
Thanks for having me on, you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Mike, I'm going to let you do the honors of pronouncing the name of your business because I'm probably going to screw it up.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Art of Ishi.
Art of Ishi.
Yeah.
Got it. Awesome. Yeah. I would have butchered that.
Well, a lot of people do, but I'm used to it.
I'm sure there's plenty of other idiots out there like me.
Yeah. Well, it's Ishi's name is it's a Yahi Indian word, and we're not that good at pronouncing some of those words. At least I'm not.
No, that's I mean, it's another language, right? Multiple languages, for
totally.
Sure.
Yep, totally another language.
So Mike, for everybody that doesn't know, Mike is a napper. He's a professional napper. And I, like you, Mike, I'm a professional napper as well. But I think we're talking about two completely different types of napping. Chief is he's like a sensei of napping. And Chief is so good at napping, he pretends like he's not napping, but actually takes a nap. But I think we're totally different, right?
Yeah, that kind of napping, I'm fairly accomplished at that too.
Yeah.
I can do it.
Everybody loves napping, but we're talking flint napping. How many words are there to describe what is it? Flint napping? Is there others?
It's that's primarily the word that's used. If I remember right, napping comes from a German word, I believe, and it means to take a little pinch. So essentially, what you're doing when you're flint napping is you take a piece of rock, a very specific type of rock, and you create fractures that you do your best to control. And if you get skilled at controlling those fractures, you can create sometimes amazing things out of a piece of rock. And if you make sometimes a little mistake, well, then you have a bunch of broken rock. So it's always challenging. I've been doing it for over 46 years. I'm still learning, and I guess that's why I'm still doing it. It still holds a fascination, and it's like I like to tell folks, we have a lot of division in our world today. Well, I guess that's always been the case, but flint napping is something that it doesn't matter where you come from in the world, doesn't matter your nationality, your race, it's something that every person in the world has in common, in that at some point, all of our ancestors were flint knappers. So that's something that we really do all have in common with all other human beings.
Most definitely. And in the intro video that we watched, you talked about how what kind of kickstarted your interest was finding that arrowhead in the Au Naturel. How old were you when you found that?
I was, if my memory serves right, I was like 21, 22 years old.
Okay, it's not terribly young.
No, but I had a fascination from a very young age. My dad, he worked on a farm behind a team of horses. And he grew up short ways from a creek, and he fairly frequently would find arrowheads, artifacts, while he was out doing the farm work. So he had a cigar box. It wasn't full, but it was pretty close to full. And he would get it out once in a while when I was a kid, me and my brothers and sisters, and he'd let us look through them. And I was just enthralled, just fascinated with it, that these people that lived thousands of years ago made these and took them out and hunted with them and used them. And I just never got over that fascination, and I'm still not over it. It's like flint knapping is, to me, it's kind of like you're always pursuing this mystery. You're trying to unravel this mystery of what happened in prehistory for thousands of years, and learning to flint knap and replicating some of the tools, projectile points that prehistoric people made. That's kind of what that is. You're rediscovering the past, and you learn a lot from doing it. Insights into how particular stone tools were used, sometimes how they were broken. And I like I say, I still have a fascination for it, and I hope I never lose it.
It's I have personally have never done it. I know Eric was involved quite a bit when he was younger, and I'm sure he'll talk about it, and went last weekend, found some stuff. It's one of the things that I would love to try to do, is to get out somewhere and look for things. And I can see it being very addicting, because it's that anticipation. It's like hunting.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's that, like you say, anticipation, that you're just walking along, and any second you might look down and see something that's like, oh baby.
Yeah.
And pick up something that is really special. Well, they all are, even if they're broken. Every artifact you find has a human story with it. Now, we're obviously not going to be able to totally figure that story out, but every time you find an artifact, or at least when I do, I look at it and I just, I can't help but wonder, well, who was this person that made this or used it, and how did it come to be here where I found it? There's just a thousand questions pop in your mind, and that's a big part of the fascination of it to me. I never really get over that.
Is there? Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, I'm basically just a big kid. I'm a big kid. I loved going out and finding pretty rocks when I was a kid, and then I got into artifact hunting, and I never got over it. I still just get a big kick out of doing it.
It's when from across the country, different parts of America, do you find similar types of arrowheads or spearheads, but are different based on tribe, area, material that's available to them? Do they are you able to kind of tell and see how they do things different?
Yes. You definitely can see the individuality of people as far back as you want to go. I mean, here in North America, according to archaeologists, generally accepted dates are the first people here after the last ice age were in the neighborhood of 15,000 years, perhaps, ago. And then they spread out across the continent, and things changed over thousands of years in terms of the types of projectile points they used. And geographically, there's quite a bit of difference. Well, for example, I was showing some artifacts that a friend of mine down in Texas sent me. He only keeps the nice pristine ones, but he finds so many of them that he has, I mean, literally boxes of broken artifacts. He sends them to me. I love studying them. And the types of projectile points and knives they vary quite a bit from one area geographically to another. And I think that's just a sign of individuality. Somewhere along the line, a flint napper designed a point. He notched it a certain way, or sometimes maybe just put a stem on it. And for whatever reason, it caught on. And for sometimes a considerable period of time, that's the way these projectile points or blades were made. And there's no real explanation. I mean, we don't know how that all played out, but it's sure interesting to think about it and wonder. So yeah, there's well, if you go online and just do a little research on arrowheads,
Mm-hmm.
you will find, I mean, literally hundreds of point types, different names. Now, from one part of the country to another, they're often similar in the way they were made, their configuration, but they're given different names for that particular point or tool in that geographic area. And it can get kind of confusing. Now, I'm most familiar with point types from the Midwest area.
Okay.
Obviously, that's where I live, so that's what I'm most familiar with. But I also am familiar with some types from different parts of the country, and I often look at them and I just wonder, now, why did they design it like this? Was it just a personal preference? In some cases, it's a very pragmatic reason that they designed the point a certain way, and it had mostly to do with how it was going to be hafted on the shaft of either the arrow or the atlatl dart or the knife. Because the fact of the matter is, most of what folks call spear points were actually not spear points. They were hafted cutting tools, knives.
Sure.
And so most things that you find that are much larger than, say, 2, maybe 2.5 inches, was likely not a projectile point, because it affects the aerodynamics of the dart or the arrow in a negative way. And I can speak to that from some experience, because there was quite a few years I hunted with nothing but flint-tipped arrows and so-called primitive bows. And, I spent a lot of time experimenting with different point designs, and tested them for flight characteristics, penetration characteristics. And what I found was, if the point is properly mounted, and you have your arrows of the proper stiffness for the pounded to the bow.
Yep.
Which prehistoric people, I'm sure they figured that out.
Yep.
Just like we have. The configuration of the point really doesn't make a lot of difference in the accuracy and the lethality of that particular point. I hunted with some what we would consider very non-typical projectile points that were made in all parts of Europe and Scandinavia, because flintknapping in the old world took a little bit different track than it did in the new world. What was practiced here in North America and other places is generally referred to as bifacing. And all that means is the basic methodology was you find a chunk of material, flint, obsidian, whatever was in that locale, and you typically start with a hammer stone, just a round stone, and you would strike a large flake or spall off from that. And then you would either continue with a smaller hammer stone or go to a antler billet. That was the primary tool that was used throughout prehistory, was antler, sometimes bone. And then you would remove flakes on either side of this more or less, a thick flake or spall. Just, it looks like like a fat hamburger patty.
I like hamburgers.
Yeah, so yeah, me too. So what you're doing is selectively removing flakes to thin it and shape it from either side, either face. It's just generally called bifacing. That's the primary methodology used to create points, knives, all kinds of tools. In the old world, the methodology was primarily what's called blade core technology, and it was just taking a chunk of material and, again, usually using a hammer stone, you'd shape it in more or less a conical shape and make the top of that more or less flat. So it would resemble, I guess, for lack of a better description, it would resemble a large bullet.
Okay.
And then using antlered punches, they would selectively punch off long flakes that would travel right down that conical shape. And these were, when they come off there, the edges are just razor sharp. So they were a ready-made cutting tool that didn't require really any more work. So it was actually a very efficient way of using material. But then sometimes they would section those flakes or blades. And I think a lot of your viewers out there are familiar with flintlock rifles or firearms, where there's literally a little kind of a squarish piece of flint in the hammer, which hits the frizzen, makes sparks go down, ignites the powder, and boom. Well, they were doing the same thing. They were sectioning this into, these were like more or less rectangular. So the edges of what was that blade became the lead end of the point. So you had if you can imagine a regular triangular shaped arrowhead, and then turn it around so it's inverted and stick the tip into the shaft, and you got this broad razor edge as the leading. That's the leading edge of your projectile point. That's what they were using as projectile points. So they're called Mesolithic transverse points. So I had to try them. So I was making them, and I took them out, and I tested them on. Here in Michigan, we have a lot of roadkill deer. We have for years. So
drivers in Michigan.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people don't know enough to slow down when deer are crossing the road.
That's right.
They pay the price. But when I saw a fresh roadkill, I would throw it in the back of my pickup truck, take it home, and I had arrows all ready to go. And I'd go out and I did penetration tests, flight tests, and I found that these very atypical looking projectile points were remarkably efficient. They penetrated well. The flight characteristics were excellent. And it kind of blew me away. I just like, there's no way these things can really work that good. But they were making them and using them for thousands of years, so they must have.
Right.
And yeah, I went out and I took a couple of deer with transverse points, and they went down fast. Of course, you know, what I'm saying is no surprise to guys like you, because you know, I think, as well as most experienced hunters, that it doesn't matter if you're hunting with a so-called primitive bow and a stone point or a high-powered rifle. The key to making consistent, quick, clean kills is all about shot placement. And that's what I always tell guys who want to go out and hunt with stone points. You know, sometimes they have doubts whether they're really that lethal. And I just assure them, if you put it where it belongs, it'll scare you. Because stone points are, yeah, they're scary lethal. They're obviously not as resilient as steel points, because they can, if you hit something hard, they can snap. But it's like I've always told friends who wanted to hunt with stone points, I said, well, look, if you make a shot and you hit the deer's shoulder blade or femur, it doesn't matter if it's a stone point or a steel point, you're probably not going to get that deer. They're probably going to keep going. So, yeah, stone points are, they're not for everybody, but there are increased numbers of bow hunters using them just for the experience, the thrill of taking a big game animal with a prehistoric stone point. It really is kind of a thrill to do something that our ancestors did for thousands of years.
Right.
So, yeah, I know guys that they go out and they hunt with their compound bows, but use stone points, which is
Yeah, I
fine.
need to try that. Eric,
You
I'm
should.
just curious. Did you call him before we started to tell? Or is that why we're going into this
No.
shot placement and penetration and?
Well, you should have known better to turn me loose. I start talking about this stuff and I just would never shut up.
No.
I just wondered if I got set up here or not, talking about all this stuff.
Didn't Joker talk to him first?
Yeah, he might have.
Okay.
So Mike, what happened is, allegedly I had done some bow hunting this past fall with crossbow for the first time, and allegedly 2 deer may have gotten away. Allegedly.
Well,
It was not my best year of hunting.
Yeah, but you know, that happens to everybody. If you hunt long enough, it's going to happen, because hunting is, no matter how conscientious you are about how you hunt, it's never a sure thing. I mean, every hunter knows that.
Yeah.
But you just go out there, you do your best.
Yep.
And yeah, everybody once in a while, you know, you don't recover a critter, but that's an unavoidable thing that happens when you go hunting, and you just do everything you can to minimize it. So, but
So
I think.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I just think I think it's great that even high tech guys, crossbows, compounds, still they're really geeked up about going out and taking a deer, bear, whatever, with a stone point. So I think it's a great revival of an ancient skill that, well, there's no reason it can't be pursued today in our high-tech world. And I think it's very refreshing that it is.
So could you use a stone point? Like, I have no idea. This might be the dumbest question you've heard in 10 years, but can you use a stone point on a compound bow arrow?
Yeah, you can. It's a little tricky mounting it, but it's not a big deal. If you have Well, I'm not up on the latest technology. I know most guys are using graphite arrows, but aluminum arrows, for example, I know I've mounted some of those for guys. You've got the aluminum ferrule that the point goes on in some cases. So basically, you just put a notch in that and fit your point to it, glue it, and then bind it on, and yeah, it'll work fine.
How do you test that? I mean, because normally with like say a normal broadhead, you go get a broadhead target and you can practice with your broadheads, but with a stone, can you do the same thing?
Okay, great question. Yeah. Okay, my solution to that, and it's probably a little redneck, I guess, but and there may be a better way. But years ago, I just I thought, well, yeah, I don't want to dull these or ruin them by test shooting them, but conscientiously, you got to go out and test shoot them and make sure they're hitting like your practice arrows. So what I did is I just get this big block of styrofoam, and I'd get my hunting arrows all done, ready to go, and I would take them out and fire them into that big block of styrofoam once or twice just to make sure they're flying true and they're grouping just like my practice arrows.
Mm-hmm.
And then I put them in the quiver and no worries.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So it's yeah, it's not super complicated. Like I say, it's more or less the same as hunting with high-tech equipment. You just want to put the shot right where it belongs, and if you do, you're not going to have any problems.
I would trust a stone blade more than a mechanical.
I would agree. I've never been big on the mechanical blades, and I know people that use them, and that's fine.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, but I just never. Years ago, I hunted with for years I hunted with just a 2-blade steel broadhead, and your flight characteristics are essentially the same as a stone point. Penetration characteristics, I can see no difference. I remember the first bear I took with a stone point, it just zipped right through him, and he bolted like 30 yards, spun around to face me because literally he didn't know what happened, and just tipped over, and it was lights out.
All right, so Eric, when we go bear hunting this year, we're using stone tips.
You should. Oh yeah, you should. Yeah, it'll just put a new buzz in your hunt. Thrill. It'll be a new thrill.
Oh, I can 100% guarantee at some point this will be my next challenge. My challenge last year was crossbow. It was new to me. It was new to being legal in Minnesota. I'm going to try to kill something with a crossbow. And now I can tell this is going to be my next challenge of shoot a deer or bear or anything, something with stone tip. Okay,
the one thing I would say about that is the state laws vary on hunting with stone points. You want to check out your state regs.
We don't follow state laws.
Oh, okay. Well, we got it years ago legalized in Michigan. In some states it's legal, but they have some size limits on the point that the points have to meet certain size specifications. But every state has its own laws regarding using stone points. There are some states that really have no laws. It doesn't really say anything about it, in which case, yeah, you can go out and use them. So I would encourage anybody if they want to hunt with stone points. It's a new thrill to go out there and hunt with stone points again, like our ancestors did for thousands and thousands of years. And I even got showing up a few years ago. I used to do a show, a traditional archery show, for years, and there was a guy from. He was from. Let's see. It was. Dang it! I'm probably going to get it wrong. I'm pretty sure he's from Oklahoma, But anyway, he come over to my table the one year and he says, "What do you got for hunting points?" And I said, "Well, I've got several here, and I always try to match them within 10 grains, so that you're going to get consistent flight characteristics out of them." And most guys, are not taking real long shots anyway, which is good. But I sold him several points, and he says, "Yeah, I'm going to take them home. I'm going out this fall. I want to get a deer with stone point." I says, "Great." I says, "But do me a favor. Let me know if you do. Send me pictures, because I always get a kick out of it if somebody goes out and gets something with one of my points." Well, the next year the show rolled around, and I went and set up, and it wasn't too long. He comes walking over the table. "Hey, how'd you do? How'd you do last fall?" "Well," he says, "I didn't get anything." He says, "But as soon as I got home last year," he said, a buddy of mine stopped over, and I had those points laying on my desk. And he saw me. He says, "What are you going to do with those?" And he says, "Well, I'm going to take them and hunt with them." And his buddy says, "Well, can I have one? I want to try that." So he said he reluctantly gave him one. Well, his buddy went out, took a deer with it. He shot right through it, recovered the arrow, cleaned the arrow up. He went back out, took a second deer with it. That time the deer broke the arrow. He took the point off, remounted it on a fresh arrow, went out and shot a third deer with that same point.
Wow.
I've never done that. So I'm like, good on you.
Yeah, it must not hit any bones.
No. Well, actually, you can hit ribs. Deer, bear-sized animal, quite often, stone point will blow right through ribs.
True.
It may nick it a little bit, but I've shot right clean through ribs with stone points, and you wouldn't know it to look at the point. So
it will kill. Familiar with that term? It will kill.
Yeah, it's again, I still am amazed sometimes at what stone points and tools will do, but I shouldn't be amazed, because it's obvious that people lived and survived with nothing but stone tools for thousands of years. So, but I'm quite sure that they were exceptionally better hunters than I am, being out there doing it every day, literally for a living, to stay alive. So I keep wishing they'd invent a time machine.
Yeah, no kidding.
Oh man, what I would pay to go back in a time machine and just hang out with some of these prehistoric people and just see how they went about doing things. Wow, you could write book after book after book.
We could go mammoth riding. I guarantee they did mammoth riding. I guarantee they did mammoth riding. It had to have been a sport. I mean, we ride bulls.
Yeah, well, I'd pay money to see that. Of course, you got folks over in Africa. They used to go after elephants with so-called primitive weapons.
True.
So it doesn't surprise me that paleo people in North America hunted and took down mammoths and mastodons. Doesn't surprise me at all.
We're going to come back to that point.
Okay.
Can we play show and tell a little bit, Chief? Can you show what you found last week? And I want to be able to ask some questions.
Yeah.
So when we're talking, like earlier, you talking about the size, and would this have been used in some sort of hunting, or would this have been more of a utility, a tool?
It could have been both. A lot of times, the tools they made.
Yeah, you can see it pretty good.
Yeah, the tools they made were, for lack of a better term, multi-tools. They used them for quite a variety of applications. Now, that particular one, that could be one of two things. It could be what's called a preform, something they were shaping and they were going to make a finished blade out of it, make a knife out of it, or it could have been a utility tool that they use for cutting, scraping, chopping. what a lot of folks don't think about is that prehistoric people didn't live just by using stone. They had a whole range of things that they created out of wood and leather, and well, stone tools was all they had to work these materials. So obviously all those organic artifacts, of which there were many, are gone unless you're fortunate enough to find something in a cave in an arid climate, which my friend down in Texas has done. He's found pieces of woven baskets, pieces of leather pouches. He actually found a couple of flintknapping tools that he sent me pictures. He says, yeah, we were in this, it was well, they call them rock shelters, and they excavated a fire pit. And he found it's about a 6-inch antler, the base of a pretty large deer antler. And he sent me a picture of it. And I kept looking at it. And I called him. I said, can you send me a picture, a close-up of the end of that antler? And he did. And it was unmistakable. That was a flintknapping billet.
Oh.
Yeah, which I thought was just cool, because I only dream of finding something like that, which you're never going to find here in Michigan unless you happen to dig it out of a bog or something like that. But yeah, he finds some organic artifacts that date thousands of years old.
Now, speaking of digging, what are the rules? Because it seems like everybody has a different interpretation based on, or maybe it depends on the state, as far as when you're out looking for things like that. Is it allowed to dig them up? Do you have to find them on the surface? Is there a 2-inch rule, or like how does that vary? How does that work?
Yeah, again, it's a state by state kind of a patchwork of laws that you have to go by. In some states, it can be pretty restrictive. Now, the one universal thing is typically on federal or state land, you're not allowed to dig. In a lot of cases, you're not allowed to pick anything up.
Yeah.
But on private land in most states, you can go out and hunt artifacts. And if you are so fortunate as to find, for example, fire pits that can be excavated, you can learn a lot. Because typically folks throughout prehistory are just like people today. Well, if you're out camping, let me ask you a question. If you're out camping, sitting around the campfire, and you got some waste paper or something, what are you going to do with it?
Well, my camping is in a hotel room, so I'd probably throw it in the garbage bag.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. If you're roughing it, if you're out in the booth.
I'm joking. I'm using that to start a fire.
Well, yeah. I mean, most people when they're camping, their garbage and stuff, they throw it in the fire pit. And prehistoric people did that too. So when you excavate fire pits, you can learn a lot about what was going on there from their garbage, the stuff they threw away, which includes sometimes broken projectile points, preforms. And that's something that I learned from my friends in Texas. That happened quite a bit down there, and it didn't happen much here in Michigan because the materials here in Michigan are not near as abundant as they are down there.
Mm-hmm.
So they used everything. I mean, even waste flakes, when they were, knapping something around here, if you find a waste flake much bigger than a quarter, that's kind of unusual because they used everything for something. They'd make little tiny points out of it, maybe for their kids to learn. But down in Texas, they find sizable broken preforms that were just pitched into the fire pit because, material was so abundant in some areas. It's like, well, it's going to be quicker just to make a new one rather than try to rework that one.
Sure.
So, but, again, that gets back to human nature. When there's an abundance of anything, well, we tend to be more wasteful. So I think that
Right.
that seemed to have been the case in prehistory too.
So speaking of that, how often have you gone 3/4 through a piece of work and then something happens?
Oh, never. No.
Never?
Oh, no, that doesn't happen to me.
So when that happens, are you like frantically trying to figure out, okay, the piece that broke off, or what can I make that into something else? Because let's be honest. So you're the stuff that you're working with, a lot of times you're either, are you finding it or are you buying it through, like, I know when we talked yesterday, you bought a bunch of opal from a kind of a dealer or a distributor.
Yeah. Over the years, I've gone out and done my share of quarrying, and I love doing it. It's fun, digging your own rock. But over the years, I've come to specialize in knapping exotic materials. I love the really exotic, beautiful materials. That's what really trips my trigger. So I buy it from different sources, rock shops. There's big rock shows that go on. So I buy most of it, and then, well, you bring it home, and then you got to process it. You got to reduce it, and it's all got its share of defects. Especially the pretty rock has even more defects than the more common materials. But you got to reduce it and cull it, recull it, and then the good quality stuff that's left, then you try to do your best work and get the most you can out of it. And that's a challenge, but when you do it, it's a rush. It really is.
I don't know that I could handle the pressure. Even if I'm working with this gorgeous piece of opal, and every little thing that you do could make or break it.
Yeah. I don't honestly, you get to a point where it's like, okay, I'm going to do my best work on this. I'm going to do my best effort. And there's going to be a certain failure rate, either due to unseen defects in the rock that jump out and bite you.
Yep.
Or you just misjudge a little bit on something, on the angle of the force, or there's a number of things that are, it comes down to a feel. You develop a feel for the material, and sometimes you're just a little off, and that can cause failure, and that's just part of it. You have to accept it. You minimize it to the utmost, but I don't. I like to tell friends. A number of years ago, I got into making butterfly pendants. A friend of mine, she asked me if I could make her a butterfly. Well, I guess I'll try. So I made a butterfly, and it turned out pretty good, and I posted it, and everybody wanted to know if it was for sale. So I thought, well, okay, that's kind of challenging to make these, and they're beautiful when you get the right piece of material.
Mm-hmm.
So I've made a lot of butterflies over the years, but it's like I tell my friends, butterflies are really delicate to hatch out of a piece of stone. And they have an unusual characteristic. When I'm napping a butterfly and something doesn't go right and the butterfly dies, it will fly at astonishing speed right at the wall of my workshop, and then it's done. That's it. So they're kind of unusual critters, but they're challenging, and when you make it out of the right piece of rock, they really are beautiful. And I don't wear jewelry. I wear a wristwatch. That's it. The stuff I do doesn't mix with jewelry, but I enjoy making beautiful jewelry, and people enjoy it. And I think I was telling you yesterday, I really get a lot of enjoyment out of just knowing folks enjoy my work. And the beautiful rock. I mean,
Right.
everybody loves beauty. And well, I'm fortunate. I have some God-given talent for flint knapping. Flint knapping is like anything. When I was a kid, I used to love to play baseball, but it wouldn't have mattered how much I practiced and played. I never would have made it to the pros. Heck, I wouldn't have made it to the college level.
Mm-hmm.
But I love to play baseball. But there's people with exceptional God-given talent for athletics. It's the same with flint knapping. Some people have exceptional God-given talent for it. And then it's like any other talent. You have to just do it and do it and do it to refine it. And if you love what you're doing, you'll just keep running with it.
Sure.
And that's the case for me. It's still a challenge. I still get a lot of enjoyment out of doing it. And I got this joke about the real beautiful materials, especially opal, because I'm an opal-holic. I just love the stuff. I buy it and I gotta nap it. And it's I can look at an opal point, or sometimes I make hearts out of them. And I tell you what, I just look at that and it makes me want to giggle like a little girl. That's what I tell people. That's my joke. And it does. It just kind of tickles your innards with just the amazing beauty of a stone. And when you can create something out of it, it's just a unique thrill.
Mm-hmm.
It's a real source of enjoyment. The only problem with that is sometimes when something turns out like I visualized it when I started,
mm-hmm.
and I really, really like it, I have a really hard time parting with it.
Sure.
So
I'd imagine.
Yeah, I just want to keep looking at it. So I have this thing I call a keeper case. And when something really tickles my innards, it gets locked up in the keeper case for, a period of time. And then if I make something that I like and the keeper case is kind of full, then, something has to find a new home.
Swap out.
Yeah, so that's kind of a little game I enjoy playing. So every once in a while I get to treat myself, and when something turns out I really love it, it's like, no, I got to keep this and just look at it for a while.
Yeah, I mean, hell, I don't blame you. It's your work, it's your art.
Yeah, and it's
you can enjoy it too.
Yeah, I mean, I still am amazed at the unbelievable beauty that, I mean, it's like I tell friends, it's like I just tell them, hey, I don't know how God did it. I don't know how he made all these rocks. But when he made rocks, he wasn't fooling around, because the beauty that I've seen in rocks for so many years, and I still see stuff that I've never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
It's just mind-blowing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just absolutely mind-blowing. I mean, my friends laugh at me because we go artifact hunting and walking around out in the field there, and I'm picking up all kinds of stones because around here in Michigan, I actually live on a glacial moraine, and you talk about rocks. I got rocks on my property like you wouldn't believe, but there's a lot of pretty ones out there, and you pick them up and it's like, whoa, look at this one. So I got them out on my porch steps. When I find a particularly pretty stone, I bring it up and I put it on my porch steps. Just let's see, what was that? The movie. Robert Redford. What was that movie? Gals slipping my mind.
Oh, you're asking the wrong dude.
Okay, it was.
Movies are not my friend.
Okay, anyway.
Unless it's Dumb and Dumber.
No, there was this the Outlaw Josie Wales. No, it was Clint Eastwood. That's it. Outlaw Josie Wales. This goes way back to the 70s, but it's still a good movie. There's an old Indian in that movie that plays a part, and he has a piece of rock candy. He takes up with Clint Eastwood, And Clint asked him, well, what do you got? Take long. Well, he's got a little satchel or something. He says, well, nothing except that and this piece of rock candy. And he holds it up and he says, but it's not for eating. It's just looking through. So me and a buddy of mine, we have fun with that all the time, because sometimes you have a piece of exceptional material and you don't want to nap it, because if you nap it, you're going to lose too much of it. So it's just a specimen. So it's not for napping, it's just for looking through. And I got quite a few of them up in my window that they're translucent materials. And I'm like, yeah, I could make a heck of a nice point out of those, but I'd lose a lot of the beauty of it. So I just sometimes I'll just keep a piece of rock just for the enjoyment of looking at it.
Sure. Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
We did have a question from our chat earlier that I'm pretty sure I know the answer to, and I think Sarah answered it, but I just want to double check. So the question was everything on your website, which everybody needs to check out Mike's website, www.artofishishi.com, ARTOFISHI.com. His stuff is absolutely amazing. But the question was everything on your website you make yourself, correct?
Yes. Yep.
That's what I thought. I want it all. I told Mike yesterday I'm coming for it all. It's just everything is so awesome.
I do my own wire wrapping too, which took me a while to learn, but I'm not in the artist class for that. I know I have friends, acquaintances I know that do absolute artwork with wire wrapping, but the jewelry I make, necklaces and earrings, I just do a very simple, functional wire wrap to make it a functional piece of jewelry, and it just embellishes the finished piece. But I know people that do just artwork with wire, and I'm not an artist when it comes to wire wrapping, but I can do good, simple, functional wire wraps, and I just stick to that. So,
has anyone ever injured themselves with a piece of your jewelry?
Not that I know of, because I take the precaution of, with pendants, necklaces, earrings, I take a very fine grit diamond abrader, and I just lightly abrade the edges so that won't happen. Because seriously, you can easily get cut. As a matter of fact, I did it myself. I used to make some bow ties, and I make arrowhead bow ties. I don't make many of them anymore, but I used to once in a while, if I had to get dressed up. I'm not much of a tie guy, but if I had to dress up, then I would wear one of my own arrowhead bow ties. And I made a new one once, and I was going to a wedding, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to wear my new bow tie. So I'm looking at my watch, and boy, I better get moving here. I'm going to be late. And I put it on, and I'm cinching it up, and all of a sudden, oh, geez, it got me. And man, it laid my thumb open. So then I had to go, and I got blood on my shirt, so I had to change my shirt. And so I went to the wedding with a big Band-Aid on my thumb. But that taught me a lesson right there. It's like, yeah, if you're going to wear it, you better dull it, because if you don't, it's going to happen. So yeah, I always take the precaution of abrading it so that's not going to happen. Now, obviously, an arrowhead has a point, but so does a ballpoint pen. Right. So I figure if that point hurts you, then, well, there's nothing I can do about that.
Eric, I didn't mean to cut you off. It looked like you had a question.
Yeah, I was just going to ask him the different types of flint, if he could explain that a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good question. There's quite a number of materials that will nap. Okay, any material that'll nap, it has to have a property known as conchoidal fracturing. And the simplest way to explain that is, if you've ever seen a window that some kid shot with a BB gun, there's a little hole on one side where the BB hit, and where it goes through on the other side, there's kind of a big cone-shaped divot, round cone shape. That's the fundamental principle that's going on when you're flint napping. and that cone is called a Hertzian cone. And there's actually a lot of kind of complex physics going on when you're flint knapping, just called conchoidal fracture mechanics. And you don't have to be a rocket scientist to be a good napper, because I'm not a rocket scientist. I'm a long ways from it. But doing it, you just figure out what you need to do to accomplish this fracture or that fracture, and what you need to avoid doing so it doesn't fracture where you don't want it to. That's basically the art of it. So, conchoidal fracture mechanics applies to what's commonly called flint, which also includes a material called chert, which is really, it's more or less the same material. It occurs in different colors, different grades. Then there's jaspers, which chemically and structurally is the same, but it tends to be different colors. Jaspers tend to occur in a range of greens, reds, yellows. Some of it's just stunningly beautiful. And then you have agates, which is it's a type of quartz, and it has what's called a cryptocrystalline structure. It's just super tiny crystals. And agate typically is a translucent material. It can occur in quite a range of colors. It has some that has banding in it. It's very beautiful material. And then, of course, there's obsidian, which is natural volcanic glass, and just happens to be the sharpest substance known to science because it shears on the molecular level. And it's scary sharp. You can get seriously hurt. So that's one thing about beginning flint knappers. You do have to take some precautions, because if you get careless, you can end up in the ER getting some stitches.
Or worse, I suppose.
Yeah. And I've never had to go to the ER. There's a three times I probably should have, but I have a rule that if it's no more than 3 or 4 stitches, I just douse it with alcohol and bandage it up, and that's just me. I got this thing about doctors. When I have to go to the doctor, my blood pressure goes up, my heart rate goes up.
Yeah, a little douse of the alcohol, one for me, one for you, one for me, one for you, and then get out the Elmer's glue and call it a day.
Yeah, or the super glue. Yeah, the super glue. But yeah, those are the basic materials, but there's a lot of other similar types. For example, now some of the coolest stuff for me to nap is organic material that's been agatized, agatized coral, petrified wood. I've napped petrified sponge, which is really cool material. It's hard to get. And I've napped petrified whale ear bones.
What the hell?
Yeah. And I've napped some petrified mammoth ivory. Now, usually the petrified bone or ivory, typically you're not going to get much big out of it because it tends to have its share of cracks. But it is nappable, and you can make small points out of it, and it's a thrill to nap something out of what was, say, a tree or part of an animal, or a coral colony, thousands and thousands, millions of years, whoever you talk to.
Yeah.
It's quite a thrill to nap organic materials, and you're knowing like, wow, this was a living organism at one time, and now it's a rock. But the fascinating thing about it is, a lot of times that organic material retains its same visual qualities. In other words, petrified wood, a lot of times it looks like a piece of wood. You can see the wood grain in it. One of my favorite materials, as far as organics go, is petrified palm wood.
Okay.
And it's interesting because if you, imagine a palm tree.
Yep.
And say you cut that palm tree off and there's a stump. And when you look at that stump, you see a dot pattern in it. Palm trees have these fibers, they're called tubules that take the water up. And when a palm wood gets petrified, typically those dots are a different color than the rest of the wood. So if you nap it oriented across the grain of the palm wood, the point or the blade you end up with has this beautiful dot pattern in it. And if you turn it 90 degrees and nap that piece of petrified wood with the grain oriented that way, it'll have like a striped or banded appearance. So it's napping organic materials is kind of it's a real treat when you can find a good piece, because it does tend to have a lot of cracks. One of my favorites is Indonesian coral, because the coral polyps can be really pronounced in it. You nap an arrowhead and it'll look like it has, a lot of people say it looks like little orange slices in it.
Sure.
Orange slices. It's just the coral polyps. I've had it explained to me, under the right geological conditions, when the coral dies, it will get covered up with sediment, whatever, and then the organic materials slowly decay away, but the cell structure remains, and it gets when there's enough silica present, the silica precipitates into that material as the organic material slowly decays away. And when everything's just perfect, it will be what we call agatized, and then you can heat treat it and nap it. That's another thing I should mention. A lot of materials do require heat treating before they will nap well, and that includes many types of flint and chert and jaspers. And prehistoric people figured that out, and they were quite skilled at heat treating their material. They did it. It was a trial and error type of thing, because all these materials have a different temperature range at which it will heat treat and nap well. And you have to learn that through trial and error. And they would regulate it primarily by the depth that they would bury it, maybe several inches. They'd cover it up, build a fire, and the heat has to very slowly permeate the rock, or it'll just blow up. And us modern guys, most of us, we've done it that way, but we've since gone to these things called computer-controlled kilns, and I really like them.
Yeah, I'd imagine so.
Oh yeah. You put your material in your kiln. Once you get the formula figured out, you just program it in, walk away, come back, and depending on the heat, the formula, you come back in 24. Once in a while, it might take 48 hours, and your rock's done to perfection. So, yeah, that's one thing that some folks that start flint napping, they complain that, this stuff's really hard to flake, and it's because some of it's very tough material, and it just requires heat treating to tame it. And sometimes the heat treating actually causes some pretty bizarre color shifts in the stone.
Oh, I suppose.
Yeah, and it's really cool sometimes when you heat treat some materials. You put it in the kiln, you cook it, and then you're kind of like a little kid at Christmas.
The next day you go out there, oh man, my rock's done. I can't wait to see it. So you open the kiln up and take it out, and it's like, whoa, what's this stuff? It looks totally different. Which is, that's kind of a treat when that happens. And you just, sometimes you get a new material you're not familiar with, and you have to figure it out, and you heat treat it, and all of a sudden you see these wild colors just appearing out of nowhere. I suppose it's just the chemistry of that particular rock. But that's all part of the fascination and the allure of flint knapping to me. And but basically, flint knappers, we're just a bunch of rock crunchers. We love beautiful rocks. We love creating cool things out of it, like arrowheads and knives and whatever your imagination can conjure up. And it's excuse me, it's a rediscovery of our prehistoric past.
I'm imagining and picturing like this black market of flint knapping material. Like, hey, Joe just said he's got some of that Madagascar coral coming in on the 15th of May. Go down on 7th Street and hide behind that storage unit. Like, does that go on? Is there a black market?
Well, in some cases, some countries where the laws can be a little peculiar, that can happen. Generally, though, the only black market that's a problem is modern knappers faking artifacts. If you're familiar with the various flint knapping methodologies that were used in prehistory for producing given point types, and you use the right material, well, yeah, there's been examples of flint knappers replicating points and then using various methods to put patina on those points to make them look old, like they would if they'd been in the ground for thousands of years. And then they try to sell them to a collector for a price depending on the point, which can be pretty substantial. Some of your more rare artifacts, for example, what's called a Clovis point. It's a fluted point that was used in paleo times by the mammoth mastodon hunters. Their knives or projectile points were fluted because it facilitated a good solid hafting of the shaft. And if you find one and it's a good specimen, collectors pay pretty respectable prices for them. So unfortunately, there are, like in any crowd of people, there's always a few flint knappers out there that are going to try to take the low road and make an illicit buck by faking artifacts, which is why most knappers, not all, but most knappers sign their work. And I've for many, many years, I signed my work with a diamond scribe with my initials, MAC. That's kind of my mark. So anything I create, I sign it because it's pretty hard to erase a diamond scribe signature in the stone. But the nice thing about it is it doesn't take away from the beauty of the stone, because you got to actually look to see it. But it's indelible, so you can't.
Well, now I got to go look at mine tonight.
It's there. It's usually okay on a point. It's going to be on the right side, near the bottom. If it's a notched point, it'll be just above the notches, but it'll be on the right side.
All right, I'm gonna look.
If it's not on one side, flip it over. It'll be on the other side. Most knappers are signing their work, which I very much encourage. And besides, now the only thing I don't sign is my opal jewelry, because I don't even want to opal. I mean, it's a precious gemstone, so I don't want to deface it by putting my signature on it.
All right.
But I don't think there's much chance that my opal jewelry is going to be sold as an actual prehistoric arrowhead.
True.
especially
Very
when especially when the opal comes from either Australia or Ethiopia. So if somebody buys an opal arrowhead as an actual prehistoric point and they don't know
on them.
more, yeah, that's on them if they don't know any more about it than that.
Oh yeah.
So
for the knives, do you make your own handles?
Yes, I do.
Have you? Okay, so I see antlers as handles in your work.
Yeah.
I have a very special request.
Okay.
I want a knife that the handle is made out of a walrus tusk.
Okay.
If you ever go to any of your shows and they have walrus tusks, snatch them up for me.
Okay. I do have two. They're from an immature walrus. And these are, they're old. There's a lot of regulations on ivory nowadays. You got to really be careful, because it has to be, you kind of got to have papers on it. It has to have been in somebody's possession prior to a certain date. I don't remember what year that is now, but it's true with elephant ivory, walrus. I've made quite a few knives with ivory handles. I used to do a lot of scrimshaw artwork on my ivory handles, but there's just not enough time in the day. Once in a while, I still do a little scrimshaw, but it's very time consuming, just like Flintknapping. So I kind of, the scrimshaw work is kind of fell by the wayside over the years. But now mammoth ivory, that's perfectly legal, because obviously they're
gone.
Yeah, because they're an extinct species, but there's still a lot of mammoth ivory being found. Matter of fact, a few years back, a guy called me and he asked me if I wanted to go up to Alaska for a few months hunting ivory. That's what the guy does for a living.
Yes, please.
And at the time I had a full-time day job besides my Flintknapping. So he says, I go up there for like 3 months and hunt ivory. You want to go? I'm like, well, yeah, I'd love to, but man, the chances of my boss giving me 3 months off are like zero. So I had to pass on it, but boy, I would have loved to have gone up there and gone ivory hunting.
The reason I want this, and y'all can see right above Mike's head, there's that dagger. I've officially, during this conversation, I have completely changed my approach on how I'm going to take down a walrus in my cage match, and it's going to be with one of Mike's stone daggers with a walrus tusk handle. So I'm going to take the walrus down with the walrus tusk handled stone dagger. Done.
Are you selling tickets for that?
Yeah, it's going to be pay-per-view.
Okay, I'm in. I want a spot. I want to see that. Now let's see. Okay, now Todd, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
How old
am I? I'm 44.
Okay, that explains it. Yep. I was still game to do stuff like that when I was your age, but now I'm like, nope. I'm strictly a spectator. I'm just going to watch.
Eric's going to try to take down a squirrel. I'm going for the walrus.
Well, hey, you better look out for those squirrels, because I tried to pick up a squirrel once when I was young and he bit me. So you got to be.
But I don't think the squirrel is going to kill me, though. The walrus is going to definitely kill Todd.
Well, I hope not, but I think if he's going to do it, it's going to be an interesting video either way. So, but yeah, we'll talk about this more. I will have to talk about the blade material. You know, I'll see if I can make you something that you like.
Sweet. I'm in.
Yeah,
I'm in.
I do, you know, a fair amount of custom work, and I like, you know, custom work as a challenge to try to, okay, you know, you tell me what you want, and I try to get the best idea of exactly what you want, and then try to make it happen. That's always a challenge.
So you took the butterflies as a challenge from somebody's kind of special order. Is that the only thing you've ventured out from, as far as, like, what if we said, how about a fish? Can you flint knap a walleye out of a rock?
Oh yeah, I've flint napped quite a few fish.
Okay.
Matter of fact, I got an agate fish in my window. He's been there for a few years because it wasn't a custom order. It was my own little thing. I was like, yeah, this is going to make a beautiful fish, and I got it done. I'm like, dang, I really liked it, and I've had that fish for, I don't know, 15 years or more, and it's just he's up in the window, and that's his place, and I have a big picture window facing east, so on the rare times this time of year when the sun actually comes out in Michigan, boy, that in the morning that sun shines right through that agate fish, and just, oh man, it's a thing of beauty. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, and I get, you wouldn't believe some of the custom orders I've gotten over the years. I've napped tractors. I napped a chainsaw for someone. And well, here, I don't know how this is I'm gonna hold something up here in front of me. This is a custom order I just got done recently. Let's see here if I can get it. Oh, I'm gonna have to hold it back further.
There you go. Or put your hand behind it. We'll focus on it. There you go.
Here it comes. What does that look like?
Key.
Well, no, it's a banjo.
Or that was gonna be my third guess. My next guess was unfortunately gonna probably be like a butt plug, but I can see a banjo now.
Yeah, it's a banjo. You know, obviously I couldn't nap strings on it, but they're tricky. I've napped a few guitars, and they're real easy to break. It's
I'd imagine.
Yeah, the whole neck, and it's just really delicate work. But you know, it's a challenge, and it's something different because I mean, a guy should get bored with just making arrowheads after a while, shouldn't he?
Yeah, I can expect that to be the case.
I keep telling myself that, but I don't, because there's so many different types of points. They each got their own unique challenge, and there's so many materials that it just never really gets boring. So I'm fortunate I can do something that you know, I really get into doing it.
Definitely. Eric, you're the one that has most of the experience out of the two of us. Do you have? I've kind of taken over the whole line of questioning. Do you have questions?
No, not really. I just wanted him to talk about the different types of flint, some of the different things that he's doing, the spears versus the knives and that. And he's already covered most of that. So
yeah, I occasionally make you know, lances, which are just you know, they were a thrusting weapon, big blade on a long shaft that gave you some distance between you and whatever you were thrusting that lance into. But actual spears that they threw, that was not something that probably happened very often, simply because they're, launching a dart with an atlatl or an arrow with a bow is much more lethal and much safer because of the distance. I mean, you can, if you got a spear, you still got to get pretty close to a critter. If you're throwing it just, you know, with your arm, you got to get pretty close. And even then, it's debatable whether you can put enough velocity on it to really do the job quick.
But you got to throw this football over them mountains.
Well, yeah, it's I don't, again, until they invent a time machine, I don't think that's something that they did a lot, because there was safer ways, like I say, and a bow or an atlatl, and that's what, according to archaeologists, the bow and arrow didn't enter the New World here until, they say, maybe 3,000 years ago. And prior to that, the main weapon system was the atlatl and dart. And, an atlatl dart's basically just a big, long arrow. But the atlatl allowed them to put so much more velocity on it than throwing it by hand, that's what they took down mammoths and mastodons with. And I know guys that compete internationally with atlatls, and I mean, I've made them and I have some fun with them. I mean, I can throw an atlatl dart. Well, when my shoulder lets me, I can throw one maybe 90 to 100 yards, but
hell yeah, you can.
But as far as being accurate, no, I'd have to practice a whole lot more. But I know guys that compete internationally, and I tell you what, I've seen these guys. Well, I'd say 25 yards, a small paper plate. They'll put every dart in it from 25 yards. And
can you send me those names and phone numbers so I can send them to the Minnesota Vikings? I think we're looking for a quarterback that can maybe throw that well.
Okay, I wonder where you're going with that. Yeah, we had that problem with the Detroit Lions for a lot of years.
Yeah, but the roar has been restored in Detroit.
I got to say, the Lions, they made a pretty good showing this year, and hopefully they'll do better next year.
Definitely.
But, when I was growing up, oh boy, the Minnesota Vikings were the bad guys. They were the arch rivals of the Detroit Lions. And I still remember, you probably remember this guy by the name of Fran Tarkenton.
Yep, familiar.
Yeah, boy, he punished the Lions a lot back in his day. So
the old kitty cats, and that's where I'm going with the whole dagger thing, because if the prehistoric folk can take down a mastodon and a mammoth, why can't I take down something smaller? It makes sense to me.
Well, you could. I mean, there's prehistoric people did it. I just, well, of course you got, a friend of mine years ago, he taught school up in Alaska, in an Indian village for 25, well, actually became a principal. And they took him out on hunts with him, hunting muskox and walrus. And they're the natives up there. They can still hunt them, but obviously they're hunting them with modern weapons. But even then, they don't take any unnecessary chances, which is just plain smart to do.
Yeah.
But heck, I found out it's even dangerous to eat a muskox, because my friend there, when he was up there years ago, they took him out on a muskox hunt, and he got a muskox. And he came home that summer, and he brought a bunch of muskox with him, and he had a muskox roast. And I was geeked, because I was like, oh, man, I just want to taste that stuff, see if it's any good.
Mm-hmm.
So I had some, and it was very good. So he sent a nice chunk of roast home with me. And the next day, I says, man, I'm having muskox for supper tonight. And I did. and it almost cost me going to the dentist the next day because I chomped right down on a 7mm slug.
No.
I still give him a hard time about
Oh,
it. Yeah, he
it hurts even just thinking about it.
yeah he took it. I think it took 2 shots to bring it down, and well, he didn't account for where the bullets went, and I found the one and I gave it back to him. So yeah,
That's
but
great.
but it was worth it. Yeah, that's the only time in my life I've ever eaten muskox, but boy, I would again.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
Well, I promised I was going to keep it at an hour, and we're at an hour and 40 minutes. So you were having so much fun you didn't even know.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to interrupt.
Well, I
But
warned
I
you.
also don't want to keep you up too late.
I warned you. I start talking about Flintknapping and stuff, and sometimes I never shut up.
Yeah.
So
That's
no,
even
I've
better for
enjoyed
us.
I've enjoyed being on. I hope your viewers got something out of it, and yeah, let's keep in touch. And
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll get some materials out. You be thinking about if you got certain material preferences or color preferences. I think I can do something hopefully to satisfy your the image you have in your mind, because I know you got an image in your mind of what you want it to look like.
Yeah, I want it to be bloody with walrus blood.
Okay, well, that's
with
up
me
to you.
holding it up saying winner, winner, walrus dinner.
Okay, all right, there's going to be one stipulation.
Okay.
Oh, my Lord.
I've never had a walrus steak. I'd like to try one.
Okay.
So if you
Can make that happen.
get one, I'd sure like to try some walrus.
All right. That works for me.
Okay. Cool.
All right. Well, Mike, thanks for coming on. I was excited for this. Your stuff is amazing. Once again, everybody go check out Mike's website, www.artofishi.com. It'll be in the links on our website. It's already actually on our website. It will be in the description on YouTube, and it'll be in the description of the iTunes or Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Check his website out. His stuff is amazing. Place your order. You're not going to find anything else like this stuff anywhere else. It's great stuff. And Mike's obviously a great dude, and we like Mike.
Yes,
Well,
thank you, Mike.
Thank you guys. I really appreciate you having me on, and I've enjoyed it. And but yeah, I'm an old guy, and I got to head to bed here.
All right. Well, I want to thank all of our other sponsors. We have Texas Select Seasoning. I can't even say it. Texas Select Seasoning. Cast in camo in all caps for 15% off your order. Sea Arc Boats. Thank you, Sea Arc Boats. And of course, Deer 30. Cast in camo 24 for 24% off of your order. And that is a wrap for us. And we will see everybody next. No, we got Easter next Sunday. No show next Sunday is Easter.
Yeah. Yep. Easter.
So no show. And I'll be in South Carolina for work.
It's going to be 2 weeks.
It's going to be 2 weeks. Yeah. But we've got a full schedule over the next 2 months, man. We're almost booked solid.
Well, hey, you guys have a blessed Easter. And
thank you. You too.
Yeah, I've enjoyed this, and I will be tuning in.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, Mike.
Okay. All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Yep.